Alright kids, what you see here is a 1984 BMW R100 RT motorcycle. Over 30 years old now. When we purchased it off of Craigslist, it was attached to a Velorex sidecar, and Lord willing and the creek don't rise, it'll be attached to that sidecar once again in the not too distant future. You can see right here I've gotten into the assembly process and we are starting on the wiring system. Now I have no idea how to do a wiring system on a motorcycle or any vehicle for that matter, so I decided to record the process. What I couldn't find on YouTube, I figured I'd fill in myself. And I guess the other positive for all this is that if I get stuck, maybe I can look back on the video and see how to unstick myself. Now I can tell you that the original intent was not to rewire this motorcycle. What happened was we were going to paint the plastic, and as we peeled the layers off the onion, we found more and more things that we wanted to make look better. So next thing you know, we've got the wiring harness stripped out, the engine out of it, and we've painted the frame. So far it's gone back together relatively well, and this has given us an opportunity to fix a lot of little problems, some not so little, like fixing a low compression issue on the right-hand cylinder. But it's also given me the ability to tweak some nice things, making sure this bike's going to run for the long haul. So the adventure we're about to start off on is figuring out how to get a 30-year-old wiring harness back into this bike and functional again. And I'm sure along the way I'll find some more problems to fix as well. So that's what's coming up. I'll give you an overview of the wiring harness and let's see where it takes us. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the old and new wiring harnesses. Up top is the original wiring harness. Some of the connectors were partially corroded and had some issues when it was coming apart where some of the connector bodies were breaking, the plastic was embrittled. So we decided we would order a new wiring harness, and that turned to be a little bit of a challenge. We did get a new harness in, but you can see that even in a quick inspection, they are different wiring harnesses. So right now I'm deciding what to do next. You can see that in the original wiring system, most of the terminations happen with inside the headlight bucket. Towards the back you can see the board that's a connection point for many of the components. Also has a couple fuses integrated. The relays for the turn signals and headlights and starter are in the headlight bucket. And wired into that you have both the right, that's the left, and the right handlebar switches. There's the ignition lock, the plug for the dash, and the various other components. I guess that's actually the starter relay there, onto the back of the bike. Probably in a pinch we can reuse this harness, but I'm hoping not to. The new wiring harness was a pretty significant investment. Probably with the pieces it was in the $500 range. You can see that it's got a much different configuration. So it does have the connection for the dashboard, which I've got temporarily installed, the front headlight, and the blue tags are what I have identified as matching the existing wiring harness. Now as a quick example, you can see that here is the light relay and the turn signal relay. Both of those are inside the headlight bucket, but you can see from the way this is wired, the intention for this harness is for those components to be located underneath the tank of the bike. This appears to be a connection for a fuse box, and I have not found a mating part for that online. So, in the decision point right here, do I use the old harness, which I'll have to either A, hack up to match the existing arrangement, or B, find connection pieces for the plugs and connect the new components differently. I did find a video online where there was a kind of a connection panel underneath the right side of the tank where these connectors and others in the relays were mounted. But interestingly, in all the wiring diagrams I have, I can't find, these are unlabeled because I cannot find what the matching components are. The color coding of the wires haven't figured that out yet. And I haven't figured out a source for the looms, partial looms that plug into there. So I could put the old loom back on the bike or modify this one. Right now, I think we have the new loom is a sunk cost, so I don't think there's a cost consideration here at this point. In doing some additional research, I discovered another option. So if you look here below, this is the diagram that appears to match the motorcycle in its current configuration, just out of a Haynes manual. I can't find any errors with it. It looks like it's pretty much correct. And you can see verified in here that here's the board that's inside the headlight bucket. You can see a couple fuses in there. You can see the connectors for the rear wiring harness and ignition control unit and so forth. It all seems to match. Now up here is a drawing I've made. I obviously need to upgrade the printer and my cartridge, but what I did was I cut and pasted out of this manual and arranged the components around this device here, which is called a MotoGadget. There's a couple places in the US that sell this, but it's a German component. And really basically it's a mini PLC or computer that separates the inputs and outputs. In this drawing, the outputs are on the top terminal blocks and the inputs are on the lower terminal blocks. And it's really pretty straightforward. You run all your inputs in, like your horn switches, your starter switch, your light switch, and so forth. And they just become a dry contact feeding into the board. When the switch is closed, the board's looking for a ground. You hook your battery up to it, right down from here. You hook your key lock into it, and then you arrange all your outputs going to your ignition control module, your headlights and tail lights and brake lights. This is an additional circuit for the sidecar that's just paralleled off the headlight circuit. Horns, parking relay, parking lamp, and which I don't have hooked up yet. That's a different key switch setting. The turn signals, dashboard, and so forth. It actually looks pretty straightforward. Looks like the basic component for that is somewhere in the $300 to $400 range. That's where I'm leaning right now. I think that probably is a simpler solution, especially if I have to modify the wiring harness. And but I just haven't finalized that decision yet, haven't made the parts, or haven't purchased the parts. Alright, so after going through the wiring harness once or twice, I laid it up against the bike, made sure I couldn't make the new wiring system work, and compared the old one. Definitely made a decision to go with the MotoGadget unit. So that still requires a fair amount of work, because I think what we're going to have to do is, since everything pretty much wires through the headlight bucket here, including turn signal switch, the dashboard connector, the start-stop switch, and even the ignition coil, or the ignition switch, what we're going to have to do is unwire everything from the headlight bucket. And then I imagine what will have to happen is we will cut the connectors off of the wiring loom and then rewire them to go directly into the MotoGadget unit. You can see everything's pretty much inside this headlight bucket. This is the connector for the headlight bulb, turn signal relays in here. This is an interesting relay down here, if you can see it. It has one wire connected to it. The brown is probably a ground wire and nothing else. So that means that whatever it was once intended for, it's probably not doing anything now. So I'm not too worried about getting that disconnected. One of the nice things about the MotoGadget unit is that don't need to put any relays back in. So within that unit, it'll take care of the starter relay, the turn signal relay, and I'm missing one more. Let's see. I have my wiring diagram right here. Let's see. Oh, the headlight relay. Yep. It also has enough power to power the horns and the sidecar lights, which will tee off and run over to the sidecar once we get that back attached. So I thought I would document taking this apart in case I need to put it back together as much as anything else. But I don't know, a lot of wires, but it looks pretty straightforward. So I guess we'll just start at the beginning. Nice to get this out of the way. Let's see. Let's see if we can disconnect that. Need a little wrench to hold that still. Fair amount of rust in around this. This bike clearly has had periods of time where it was unloved. So it feels good to restore it back to something a little more newer. Alright, so there's that relay. It also looks a little corroded. Looks like something was connected down here. No idea what. Maybe we'll run across some wires. Let's see, we can take this relay out as well. Just go ahead and I think I'll just try to unscrew that first. A little less rust on this one. That. And let's go ahead and disconnect all these connectors. Maybe. One of the things I've discovered as I've been doing this is a lot of these connectors are kind of corroded in place. I've broken a lot of 30-year-old embrittled plastic trying to do this. Now, knowing how helpful the YouTube community can be, I'm sure somebody will tell me why I'm being an idiot with how this is done. It really doesn't want to let loose. Won't be too long before you see some cussing. There you go. There's the housing. Alright. I need to just get this out of my way, so we're going to do it this way. And you know what? Just out of an abundance of caution, to temporarily I'm just going to relay. Just to remind myself what that was until I figure out where it's going. I've noticed that there are at least a couple cases where there's the wire colors don't necessarily match what I would expect. Looks like I can pry this little prong back. To access, to get this cable loosened up a little bit. And I think I'm going to have to probably start going deep. This was in the dashboard connected to a fuse. I'm not sure what it was for though. As I recall, when I took the dashboard apart, there was no fuse in the fuse holder. So that's something that was abandoned at some point or another. Let's see if I can get in here and disconnect this relay base. Or at least figure out how it's attached to this bracket in here. Looks like yeah, there we go. So there's a relay. Made in West Germany. That's not new. Oh, and there I can disconnect this relay base back here with this screw. So I'll take that out. And that's out of our way. So your relay base, relay wires, start disconnected from this board down here. That's a small little jumper, just a ground probably, given that it's brown. Interesting little connectors here. Look at these two right here. Green is probably ground. Green with blue. Let's see. According to the handy dandy Haynes manual here. Green with blue inside that bucket. Doesn't exist. Yeah, of course. Green with blue outside the bucket. Thought it was a turn signal. I'm not seeing it. Let's see, green. Oh, you know what? It's probably the engine start switch circuit here. So that's probably the green with blue. Well, regardless, it all needs to keep coming out. Maybe. Tell you what. Black. This red should probably tend to be power. Browns tend to be grounds. The board is color coded down there, so maybe if I did have to get this back together, maybe I could. I hope I don't. Okay. Making a little progress. I'm going to stop either when all these are out or when I'm bleeding. I'd say that the odds are pretty good I find some sharp metal before this is all over. That's about half the board right there. See if we can get some work done on this other half. Not quite as satisfying as watching James May put stuff together, is it? But hopefully that phase will come before too long. I did order the MotoGadget unit today. Don't have an estimated delivery yet. Hopefully it won't be too long. Got a long weekend coming up. I wouldn't mind working on it. Getting closer. Haven't torn up too many connectors, but given that I'm probably about to cut most of these ferrules off, I don't think it really matters. Glad I wasn't working in the factory putting all this stuff in. I don't think that's how I'd want to spend my days. Of course, no manufacturing operation would ever do something like this again. It's too time consuming to wire it. Little fusible link in there. I'm glad that never went. It'd be pretty tough to replace with it. Just a couple more to go. Worked up a nice sweat here. Interesting, the way these wires are wrapped, it looks like they're also being kind of used to hold the bundle in place. Just have the one more. Alright, let's see what we got here. Now I guess the thing to do, see if we can fish some of these out. So here's another set of wires here that was running to the dashboard. Imagine at some point somebody had some accessories on this bike and stopped getting used. Here's the ignition lock bundle. Is here. Wraps under here. Looks like some of these ferrules may have actually been wired inside here, because I don't know how they're going to draw through. Oh, there's another one connected down there. Let's see, I'm just going to sort these out. Connected pair here. And another one here. Okay. And here again, some ignition wire, or ignition lock wire. And goes to this white here. Appears to go into that other bundle. I guess what I need to do is go the other way and disconnect these. Alright, there's the ignition lock, free and clear. I'm not sure I'm going to use the parking light circuit, but don't have to decide that right now. Well, it's not going to feed through because of the size of the grommet anyway. See what this one is. Oh, here we go. This is for, and I know I can cut these off. I will cut these off. So this is the start-stop switch. See that? So I'm going to go ahead and take those connections off. Leave myself as much wire as I can. That's interesting. It's going kind of two directions here. One more. That's the brown and yellow. should be okay. So that's for the ignition wires, or the kill switch and the start-stop switch. So you've got the blue with yellow, the solid green, green with blue, and that's brown and yellow, even though it doesn't really look like it. Alright, so that's good. That's going to actually get wired directly into the MotoGadget unit, so we'll set that aside. And let's look for the other connectors. Let's see if we can figure out how to get these turn signal lights out, or the turn signal and headlight switch, horn switch out. So that's coming in right through here. So that is this bundle right there. Interesting. So probably no surprise, one of the places that is directly going appears to be the ice cube relay base for the turn signal relay, or I guess it could be the lighting relay. Let's look. So we've got what going into this relay base? Green with black, brown, and green with yellow. Green with black. So green with black, green with yellow, and brown. So that is the turn signal. Oh, you can't see that. So that is the turn signal relay. So that also, like I mentioned before, will be replaced with the inside the MotoGadget unit. So we don't need to worry about that. Again, let's trim those where I can get as much wire out of it as possible. And then same thing with the rest of the leads. And two more. That should come out. Oh, looks like a wow, missed two more. There it was. Okay. So here we have the left-hand, the left-hand switch, high beams, turn signal horn. And if we look at the wiring diagram again, let's see. Alright, so if we look at the wiring diagram again, we can see, let's see, the blue with black. Alright, so the blue with black is your right turn signal. The blue with red is your left turn signal. Green and yellow. Oh, here it is. Green and yellow here is the return to the turn signal relay. So that's actually going to end up being a ground in the new circuit, I think, to the MotoGadget unit, because the MotoGadget unit appears to look for ground signals. So once it's connected to ground, it'll see it. Then I've got green with black for one side of the horn, which will end up going to ground. And then brown with yellow, which I don't see. This is brown with, oh, sorry, it's brown with white. That's this guy right here. That's the other side of the horn. Yellow is coming into the headlight. And then yellow with white. Oh, so the yellow with white was going to the headlight relay. The yellow is going to the distribution board and feeding to the headlight low beam. The white would be the high beam. And then we just have a green for this ground right here. That ground circuit right there. Alright, so we've got all that connected, and we will need all of that for sure. Alright, get this out of the way. And here we have the headlight. About the only thing that I think will stay inside this bucket moving forward. So here are the headlight connections. Now the headlight will feed I think ground, and then both other connections are going to go directly to the MotoGadget unit. So that means these wires are going to have to get extended. So I'll need that. And what else do we have in here? A lot of power distribution. Let's see what this is. It's going through another cable holder in here. So this feeds to the rest of the electrical control system. Alright, so you can see that's all we've got left in there. We've got these three connectors that are through. Let's see if we can figure out what those are. So let me get my book back out here. So what do we have here? It's inside the headlight bucket, and it's green and white. Oh, that's so faded. Maybe that's a green and a red. That was hooked to a relay, right? So that must have been to the light relay. So yeah, if you look, let's see, right over here we have, oh, gray. Maybe that's gray? I only see 4 connections here. I guess the other one is to the relay on the other side of it. So we needed a yellow. That could be this one. Maybe that's the gray. Yeah, because that's a yellow with white. Red. Green with white I've got. And this faded one. Oh, no. No, I think it's gray. Let's see. I'll look here where it's less faded. So I've got green, green with white, gray, and red. So that must have all been going to the light relay. I don't think I'm going to need any of that. I'm going to ahead and pop these connectors off so I can pull it through the headlight bucket. Yeah, gee, as somebody that works in a lot of manufacturing for a living, this was a lot of hand wiring on the bike. I am sure that techniques have changed a lot since 1984 when this thing was built. Pull these through. Okay. So that's that. This board can go away. We are not going to use that. So let's pull these screws out real quick. The headlight bucket doesn't look great, but it's going to be behind the RT fairing. And I do not think I'm going to bother painting it or anything like that. Alright, so there's the board. Amazing to me, it looks like there's a missing fuse in here, and the bike ran when we took this apart, so I don't know what that was. Well, let's figure that out. So there are only 2 fuses in this whole thing. So here's the board right up here. First one was a fuse. It looked like it was going to the light relay, is the one that appears to be missing. The lights worked. The other fuse, the red one, is in this circuit here, so it's going to things like the voltmeter. That's interesting. Oh, the emergency cutoff switch. Maybe that makes some more sense. Down to the lights. So all that's going to go away. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull all the rest of these connectors off. Maybe I can, I don't know that I'll be able to draw that through this opening here. It's going to need to get out of my way. I You're pretty much going to have to dissect this wiring harness. Sticky stuff in here. Whoops. Well, I wonder if we'll ever get this bike started again. Hope so. It's my dad's bike, so he really hopes so. Let me just go ahead and... Well, here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to draw this through. Probably going to dissect this wiring harness a little bit more. There's a lot more to it out here. I still have the new wiring harness. I may end up using some pieces of it. That's the dashboard connector that I'm going to need. I guess I'll start laying it out on the bike. So I'm going to pause here because all I'm going to do is dissect this stuff and then check in when I lay it on the bike. Alright.